one of the concerns that I have for the channel, and maybe this is something that you can develop with ECS, dealers have to come to the understanding, in our opinion, that where they are with the traditional A3, A4 business is not going to cut it going forward. It's going to provide basically a foundation. Now, it doesn't mean that businesses are not good businesses. It doesn't mean they can't do something with it. It's a foundation. And I think the smartest thing that they can do is take a serious look. And I'm going to say this, Scott, you know, I've said it many times, production print. I don't get it. The low number of dealers that are involved, genuinely involved. A lot of dealers think because they sell a light production model, they're in production print. That's not production print.
Yeah.
A lot of dealers think if they sell some machines to print for pay, they're in production print. That's touches on the fringes of it. It's not the essence. I don't see the manufacturers doing much to cultivate that business. And it kind of troubles me because, as you recall, through the years, we always had something coming on next that we can gravitate towards it. We went from analog to digital. We had facsimile with the new excitement and so forth and so on that we could jump to, and the dealers went and exploited. There's nothing like that in that chain anymore, except the high end.
I think you're right. I think production print is a critical component to expanding the business. It's a critical component. And I personally think some of the issues that the dealers have, besides the fact, you know, we could talk about COVID and pandemic and all that, you know, all the impact of work from home, all those challenges, right? So I think the dealers that got on board with production print early on, right, you know, a couple, 3 years ago, they struggled through and they made a success. Most of them have made a success of production print. I think what happened is that the communication and the stresses on the business basically created a gap. And that gap either was headcount related, resource related, you know, how are companies dealing with production print versus, you know, even the A3, A4 situation. But I do think you're right. I think one of the other issues, Frank, and I've kind of challenged some of the dealers that we work with on a daily basis, is they don't necessarily have someone in charge at the dealership level who has a major responsibility to isolate their business plan down to 1, 2, or 3 things. So typically, as you know, they have their IT guy or their CIO, or the dealer might, you know, feel empowered, or the sales manager. But when you look at the actual business plan, like coming into next year, who is the person that's identifying the area of growth, the area of need, and the resources that are required, / business plan? And that's where I think production print gets lost, because they're typically, if you're not in it already, I don't know that they have an expert on board their dealership that can actually deal with it. So the OEMs are stressed because they don't have enough resources to go and do what they used to do 5, 10 years ago. And, you know, there's a lot of challenges out there. So I think it's prioritization and a voice. And so you raise an interesting point. I probably should be thinking about that for ECS.
I would encourage you, if you have a moment, take a look at our latest issue, which is devoted to production print. We interviewed 3 dealers in that group, and it gives me a wonderful opportunity to apologize to one of them because I screwed up his interview. And that's the only way I can say it. John Thiel, Omni Inc. in Alexandria, Virginia, who does a fantastic job there with federal agencies. And it's so interesting, his business, he's dealing with federal agencies who don't want it known that they have these machines. They don't want anybody coming up and asking them about it. They can't get entrance to the facility. So anyway, John, I told you I'd set it straight. John's annual revenue is 33 million.
Wow.
I put down 15 million, which was his hardware number. So excuse me, John, this is the first time, but I'm going to keep reminding people that I screwed up. But it was a great, it was a great interview, and the same with John Lowry's company, Applied Imaging, and Keith Allison. The things that we learned from that, I think I'm hoping that the dealers get the same thing from that. Because I think what you're trying to do is very much the same thing. Take advantage of what we can do to diversify.
Absolutely. And some are easier roads to travel. You know, production print is very near and dear to the core. You know, so why wouldn't a dealer do that? And frankly, I think it's just getting lost in the messaging. And by the way, John, I want to go on the record. I've never heard Frank acknowledge a mistake. So he is Frank Cannata. He doesn't make mistakes. So the fact that he's apologizing for something, I am very impressed. And I love Frank. And if you're doing $33 million and you got 15 million in hardware, good for you. Good for you. And if you're doing production print, that's even better.
I really appreciate having you today. I continue to wish you well, because I know you're going to do well. And thank you so much.
Well, Frank, I'm not embarrassed to say this on a live call or video, but you've been a brother to me. You've been a godfather to me. So anyway, Frank, I'm honored to be on this call. I love you to death, and I respect everything that you guys are doing. So Scott, CJ, Carol, Frank, keep on doing what you're doing. Thank you.